What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be working on the GTO. So back when we did the Pro Charger install, we relocated the battery to the trunk, which you guys can see all of that stuff on the GTO playlist. And while you're there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. But when we moved the battery to the trunk, I did not install a kill switch. I just put a breaker inside the trunk itself as like a protection for the circuit. So when you turn the breaker off right now, the car will continue to run on the alternator. So we want to change that, and we want to have a kill switch on the outside of the vehicle for the track and just as a safety measure. So today we're going to be running a wire for the alternator all the way to the back of the car, where it will meet a battery cable at a kill switch underneath the car, so that when you hit it, it shuts the car completely down. So let's get through the intro and jump right into today's video. Alright guys, so now that we've gotten through the intro, these are some of the parts we're going to be using today. We've got some 0 gauge wire for the actual battery feed. Then we've got some 4 gauge, which is going to be the alternator wire that's going to run all the way to the back of the car. We've got some nice crimp-on ends here that we're going to crimp on to each size wire. And then we've got an All-Star Performance kill switch right here, just a simple on-off. We're going to try to use this one. I'd like to mount it underneath the car so that you don't really see it. And I'll mount like a rod or something to it. We'll make a support for it, and then just put a sticker on the bumper for push off. So we're gonna try to mount that tucked under the car so that you can just hit a rod and it should flip that switch. Like I said, we're gonna try to make it happen. I couldn't find a different style switch like what I'm looking for anywhere local, and I was trying to get this done. So like I said, we can try welding a rod onto that or try something else. Worst case scenario, we'll set it up with that and then just order a different switch. But I think we're gonna be able to make it work. So let's head on out to the car and get this thing started. All right guys, so the first thing that we're gonna do is go ahead and kill our main power feed here with our little breaker. And then we're gonna go ahead and get the lid to this battery box opened up, get this thing out of the way so that we can disconnect our wires, just so that we know we're not working on a hot system. All right, now that we got the battery box cover disconnected, let's go ahead and disconnect our positive cable just to be safe while we are working on the system. All right, let's go ahead and take our battery cable off. Got that. Now I'm gonna go ahead and loosen up the nut on our breaker here and feed that positive wire down underneath the car, because I would like to run that one to our switch, and then from our switch we will bring it up and connect it to that side of the breaker, so that the switch is after the actual breaker, so when we trip the breaker, it shuts power off to everything. All right, now we can go under the car and pull that through. Sorry about any background noise, guys. We've got the leaf sucker going out back. So let's go ahead and pull that through. Got that. I'm gonna unclip it here from where we have it ran. Try to get a little bit more slack out of it. All right, I'm hoping that that's enough. Let's go ahead and grab our switch and just mock it up. Make sure we're gonna have enough here. I really don't wanna have to rerun a battery cable or add any type of junction, but let's see what we've got to work with. All right guys, so I think this is what we're gonna end up doing. We're gonna make a mount, a 90-degree mount out of some aluminum, and bend it right here, mount it to these bolts, and then we can mount this switch to it like so, and we will either weld a rod to this or drill a hole in it and nut and bolt a rod that will run out the back of the car. We'll make a bracket back there with a hole drilled in it to help support the rod, so that when you hit the rod, it just flicks this switch off, which I can't do one-handed, but it'll flick the switch off and kill power to everything. So now that we've got that part figured out, we're gonna jump on getting a wire ran back here for the alternator. So let's go ahead to the front of the car, get the old alternator wire disconnected, and get one ran back to the switch. All right guys, so we're gonna go ahead and work on getting the old alternator wire off the back of the alternator first. Super tight spot. on my combination here. It's going to be fun to get this started with the new wire. Alright, so we've got the end of the wire out. We're going to go ahead and save this rubber boot for the new wire that we're about to make for it. So we'll set this aside. Then on my setup, I've got some clamps holding it at the oil pan. So we're going to go ahead and take those bolts out, get this wire out, and try to chase it all the way up to where we have it connected up in the front of the car here to our junction box. And then we will get the new wire out and start making that. Gonna try to leave a lot of this sheathing or corrugated protection on here because I don't want to cut it up for the rest of the harness. So I'm going to try to cut just enough to get this wire out of it. So when I relocated the battery to this car, when we built it and put the engine in and everything, I decided to use these junction lugs. We've got a power one right here and a negative one here, so that we had something to run the power and ground wire from the battery to, and then disperse it to everything that needed it. So we're gonna go ahead and disconnect this one here and try to figure out which one of these wires is for the alternator. It's either this one here or this one. So let's get this apart, see if we can figure out which one, try to get it out of there, and then start running our new wire. The new wire will be bypassing this lug. That's the whole point. We're gonna run it all the way on its own, all the way to the back of the car to that switch. All right, so like I said, it's gonna be one of these two wires here. Now the question is, are we gonna be able to get it out of here? All right, so we got the old alternator wire out. Now we can set this aside, save it for some other project probably, and we can start making a new one. We're gonna have to go down from the alternator. I think I'm gonna follow the routing just because I like where it goes, and we'll follow it up here, but then instead of going to that lug with everything else, we're gonna bypass it and we will just follow our main battery cable all the way back, because it's going where we need this new wire to go anyways, and I just think it'll look cleaner that way. So we can go ahead and put the power stud or the lug up here that we have, the distribution stud, back together with the starter wire and everything, and then we will go grab our new cable. We can put an end on it and start getting this thing ran. We are going to have to tape or zip tie the harness back together that I just cut open to get that wire out, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal. We'll just use some little zip ties or some electrical tape. So let's go get the new wire out and run our charging wire. Alright guys, so we are ready to make our first end for the alternator side of this cable. So we're going to go ahead and strip our wire back. I just use a razor blade on the bigger wire. Then we've got a 4-gauge 3/8 end, so we're gonna go ahead and get ready to put that on. It's just gonna go like so. We'll grab our crimping tool. They make different styles of these. You can get like a chisel style one where you hit it with a hammer, but Harbor Freight has this one right here and it works really well. So let's go ahead and get it close. I like to go ahead and put these right in here like so, and I run this down until it just barely is holding it. So we've got that set. We can take our wire and put it in, and then you just go ahead and pump this thing up and it'll crimp that end onto the wire. That should be about good. Release it. And then you've got a nice crimped end that's not going to go anywhere, securely on that wire. And then what I like to do is I take a piece of heat shrink like this one, and we're just going to slide it right over this like so. Grab our heat gun. And then you've got yourself a nicely done end. Nice heat shrink that's going to help seal it up too. And this end is good to go. So this one's going to be going right on the alternator, and then we can start working the wire through the car, routing it how we want, and run it towards the back. So let's go ahead and get this on the alternator. Too cramped in here to film anything, guys, but I did get the new wire hooked up to the alternator, back on our clamps to keep it away from everything, and we've got it started back into the loom. So we're going to go up top now, finish wiring it, or finish looping it into the loom, getting it worked all the way in, tidy that all up, and then we can feed it down at the back of the engine bay. Not sure if you guys can see in there, but we have the other power wires coming down at the back of the engine bay, and we will run this one along with it all the way to the back of the car. So in the engine bay here, I just ran it in that loom that we had the original alternator wire in, ran it right up to here where you can see that zip tie, and then just crossed over, bypassing the lug, and ran it down with the other battery cable. So we followed that. Can't really see it, which is kind of the point, all the way to the back of the firewall, right down in the corner in here, and then ran it down underneath the car. So it came out pretty decent. You don't see it any more than you've seen the actual battery power wire. So pretty happy with how that came out. Got to go ahead and trim a few of the zip tie tails off, but other than that, it's pretty much done up here in the engine bay. Now we can go ahead and get back under the car and start running it the length of the car all the way to the back. All right, so you can see where we came right down on the side of that brace thing that's up there in the engine bay. Came down with the fuel lines, power lines, everything else. We've got a nice shield we made to go up in there to protect heat, so I had to take this out of the way. We're gonna go ahead and take the other ones that we made fit out of the way. I'll undo these, get this out of here, and then I'll show you guys where I'm gonna run it. And it's gonna run out the back of it just like that, with the rest of those wires and fuel lines all the way to the back. All right, now that we've got both wires all the way back here, the battery and the alternator, we can go ahead and start deciding how we're gonna make a mount for that switch. I think I'm just gonna make an L bracket that is gonna utilize two of the studs that are already in the floor pan. So I'm gonna go see if I can find a piece of aluminum that looks like it's gonna size up, and we will go from there, get it bent up in the brake, and build this thing out. All right, guys, so I cut out this 9x12 piece of aluminum out of some scrap that we had. I made a line so that there is 4 inches below the line, 5 inches above the line. It should work out for our bolt spacing and also give us enough room to mount that switch. So let's go ahead and set it up in the brake and see if we can get this thing bent. If you guys haven't seen the video on where we made this brake out of scrap metal we had laying around, make sure to go back and check it out. It was a pretty cool video. Thing works really good. All right, let's go ahead and give this a shot. See if that's going to be enough. That's pretty close, I think. Came out pretty good. Once again, guys, if you like how that came out, go ahead and check out the video where we built it. Didn't cost us much except for welding wire and gas. Alright, let's head back over to the car and start marking for some holes. Alright guys, so instead of trying to drill or weld to this knob that the switch came with, I decided to go ahead and try to make something. So right here we've got a notch that I made in it. It's got the 2 round sides and then 2 flat sides so that we can hopefully engage onto the switch itself and then just screw it down. And then my plan is, we've got this rod here that we had kicking around. We'll cut it down to length. And then we're going to use a heim joint on the arm that we made for the switch here that goes back and forth. So I've got a heim joint for that we will weld onto this rod. And it'll go something like that sticking out of the back of the car. Now we've just got to decide where we're going to make a support for this arm. Let me turn you guys a little bit. We're going to try to make a little aluminum support off of this bolt right here. And what we should be able to do is just drill a hole in it, put this through, and then it should help support this rod a little bit better so that when you have it chilling here, it's not just like hanging down. So put a hole in that and it should slide through it and be able to engage and disengage the switch. So I'm going to take some measurements. We'll cut ourselves another piece of aluminum, make another 90 bracket, drill a hole in it for this rod, and start getting that all mocked up, cut it down to length. And then I think we're going to use this. We'll weld this to it as a little handle. It'll be a nice little T-handle for the back. You can just hit it off or pull it to turn it back on. So let's get to work. Alright guys, so here's the theory behind it. Pull, it's on, and all you gotta do is push it and it goes off. We still gotta tighten all the bolts here, the screw, and tighten everything up, but this is still just mock-up. Now I'm just trying to figure out where I want to place my little handle that I'm gonna use. I'm debating on welding it way up towards this bracket so it acts kind of as a stop so you don't over push on the switch itself, but haven't really decided 100% if that's how we're gonna do it yet. So let's get this thing mocked up, then we'll pop it off and we can go finish weld it. Alright guys, so while we let the handle cool, let's go ahead and start making some wire to run from our new switch up into the trunk for the battery. Alright guys, so as you've seen, we've got all of our ends on our cables. So we're going to go ahead and start wiring this thing up. So the one that goes to the front of the car to our junction is this one right here. And we're going to be putting that one on this side. And then we've got our alternator charge wire and then the wire that goes to the battery. And those two are going to go over on this side. So let's go ahead and get these ran. I would have obviously liked to bring them down like this, but I don't want a clearance issue and I don't want that to swing and touch. So we're just gonna go something like this. Alright, so we've got these wires all ran now. I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and throw some zip ties on these things and just get them secured and fastened where I like them. And then we can go up there and try this thing. Alright, so this is what the finished product is going to look like for now. This is the back side, obviously, with the wiring. And then we've got the front over here with the switch. Pretty happy with how that came out. And then obviously the handle So let's hook the battery back up and try this thing out. Breaker is on. Let's go ahead and pull our switch. Should be on. And we do have power. So we've got power to the car. That's a good sign. Everything seems pretty good. Now the next thing we've got to do is just go ahead and start this thing up and try killing it with the switch and make sure that the car actually shuts off, because that was kind of the whole point of doing this, is I wanted the kill switch to actually kill the car if it's running, so that we can get through tech and just for peace of mind. So we'll go ahead and get the garage door opened up, fire this thing up, and hit the switch and see if it shuts it down. Alright guys, let's go ahead and start this thing up. I'm going to let it run for a minute. I want to see if the battery voltage is any different at idle since we changed how the alternator is ran. But we're going to start it up, let it run for a minute, and then we'll head to the back of the car and try the kill switch and see if it shuts the car off. Alright, let's go ahead and try our kill switch. It works. That's awesome. So now when you push the kill switch in, it shuts the car down completely. The way it was before with that breaker in the trunk, when you would hit the breaker, it would just stay running off of the alternator. So now that we have it wired this way, you can hit the kill switch and it completely disables the car. Super happy about that. So let's go ahead and get the battery box put back together and wrap this thing up. Alright guys, so there you have it. We got the new kill switch installed and it does fully disable the vehicle, which is exactly what we were going for. The battery also seems to be charging at a little bit higher voltage, which is a huge bonus. I hope you guys could gain something from today's video in some way, shape, or form. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell so that you get notified anytime we put out a video with the GTO, the Duramax, or the Hellcat. As always, I appreciate you guys for checking out the channel, and we will catch you on the next one.